VimBiz, true integration of scheduling, rentals, and engineering. Thank you for joining us live at NAB in Las Vegas. Scheduling to time tracking, presented by Tom Levesque and Laurence Paradis-Bolduc.
All right, here we are. Good morning, everyone. People sitting here in our VimBiz booth, welcome to our little area here in Las Vegas, and welcome to the people listening and watching online. I know there's some people from Canada probably watching right now. So my name is Alain Arsenault. I've recently joined this company after a career at the CBC in Canada. I've produced and directed many projects with as little as 3 people to a crew of 40 plus people. So you need staff, you need hosts, you need various types of technicians, and that's only part of it. So you need to schedule these people efficiently in order to run this smooth operation. It's kind of like building that house. You can't have the electricians come in before you have the framing done, and the framers can't do their jobs before the foundation is poured. So then once you find the right crew, every single one has a specific work rule depending on their experience, skill, and collective bargaining agreement. The following demo will focus on how VimBiz helps media companies streamline the scheduling of their technical and human resources and allow all the employees involved in a production to track their actual hours worked using an easy-to-use interface on mobile or web. So this man has been with the company for over 14 years. He's been a witness to every variation of media needs in detail. He has seen it all, or almost all, right? From the small town of Valley of Love, that is correct, the Valley of Love in New Brunswick, Canada, population 400, Tom Levesque.
Makes me sound so old. 14 years already. Thank you for people in attendance. And as Alain said, some folks are tuning in online. It's a live presentation of our scheduling system and also time card management. So VimBiz is a suite of integrated solutions. We do work with the engineering department of broadcasters, and when I speak about engineering, it's everything that touches equipment assets. So we have the ability to manage the entire life cycle of these assets. Many of our customers also have an internal rentals operation because they manage the checkouts and the check-ins of these assets. But today we'll be focusing on really the entire process of scheduling human or technical resources in VimBiz. We'll talk about shift planning or shift scheduling using Shift Templates. We'll talk about production project planning by creating facility events and linking them to production projects for cost tracking purposes. We'll also talk about the actual time tracking, right? When your employees get their schedules published, they can go and using the mobile phone or the web interface, enter their actual times worked and ultimately tied to the payroll system. And we'll have a sneak peek at what we believe is the future of scheduling, and that is scheduling automation. Many of our customers selected VimBiz through public tenders. It's the case with these national networks that you see here at the top. But after having selected VimBiz for scheduling and time cards, some of them, if not most of them, have decided to go ahead and expand their use of VimBiz by also tracking equipment in VimBiz and whatnot. More recently, we've been selected as the best alternative to replace ScheduAll by TFO in Ontario, Canada, and also Lassette in Italy. And we're also replacing ScheduAll at SRG in Switzerland. Other customers have selected VimBiz through public tender specifically for equipment logistics. It's the case with the RTBF in Belgium and Globo in Brazil, where they have a very significant implementation of our rentals module. Dome Productions, interestingly enough, started on the engineering side of the operation. They continued with the rentals, and later on they added the scheduling part of our solution to manage all their 12 or 1,500 freelancers that they deal with day in and day out. So without further ado, I don't want to bore you too much with PowerPoint slide. We'll go directly in VimBiz, and I'd ask for everybody to keep their questions for the end. We're on a tight schedule. The very first thing I want to cover in VimBiz is shift planning. day shifts, week shifts, multi-week shifts. The idea of Team Shift Scheduler is that very quickly, using some drag and drop operation, planners can either do long-term planning, what's your typical shifts in the day, maybe it's 8 to 5, 4 p.m., maybe you work the night shift, or short-term planning. Very typical use of this form is done by news department. Very quickly, by looking at the color of the shifts or the abbreviation, they know that their personnel is covering the shifts that need to be covered Monday through Sunday. It's very easy to fill in some blank days here by dragging and dropping the shift templates that I have pre-created, or maybe fix an issue here where Brenda Miles has actually been working too many consecutive days in a row, so there's a big red warning. So I just drag a shift from one employee to another, and perhaps I want to give some days off to that poor Brenda Mile, right? So I'm going to just drag and drop some day off templates on her as well. So the warning will also no longer appear because I've broken that streak of consecutive working days. If I want to be a bit faster when creating typical schedules, I'll most likely use week templates just like this, but it's the same idea. It's a quick drag and drop operation, and I'm creating weeks at a time worth of schedules. If I want to push it a little bit, I can create very complex rotations for my teams. So you can only imagine how long it took for somebody to create a rotation like this. Probably did so in Excel at first, and then they want a tool to automate the application of this rotation to a team. To demonstrate a team's rota, I'm going to use a smaller team just for the sake of time. I'm going to go a bit in the future there so you can clearly see that I have no schedule at all on this team of 4 employees. But I'm going to apply a Rota shift templates, which will change that very quickly. So I'm going to open my 4 weeks rotation here. And you can see that I have a team of 4 employees with offset values starting on May 6th. I'm going to apply this Rota. Now, the Rota is a lot more than just applying shift templates. For example, if it detects that an employee is on vacation or not available on a particular day, the shift required by the Rota will automatically be assigned to a virtual employee so that planners know that they need to allocate that shift on an available employee. Or if I made a mistake, maybe I selected the wrong date, or I want to make a change in my Rota, I can reapply the Rota and just override what it had applied before, and I don't have to go and delete the schedules and reapply them. The Rota template will do that for me. So if I refresh my schedule now, I can clearly see that I have a rotation that's been applied for the next 4, actually, I could do a month view here. And you can see my 4 weeks rotation that's been applied automatically by the Rota template. The other thing I want to show you here, visually, it's going to be clear if somebody, like, let's say an employee wants to submit a vacation request or an absence request of some sort. I'm opening up my VimBiz mobile application here that runs on either Android telephones or iOS iPhones. This is a very common workflow used by our employees or our customers. They'll use the shift request workflow to not only request absences like vacation or other types of time off, but think of it also as a great tool to maybe say when they're available or not available on a particular day. It's very common that our customers allow their freelancers to use the mobile app so that they can submit their availabilities so that you know when you can and cannot schedule them. Michelle here has started typing a pretty please message for her vacation to be approved, and she submits it from her phone. And her doing that, and me, let's say I'm the manager, I would receive an email notification that there's a vacation request that was submitted. Not only that, but visually I would see in Michelle's schedule that she requested vacation on the week of May. And if I go ahead and approve this request, upon approving this request, if the shifts of the day on the employee were required by the production, those events would automatically be moved to a virtual employee so you don't lose them, right? If you have assignments that you don't want to lose, that's how we do it. We move them to a virtual placeholder, if you will. We call that virtual employees. And then those events can be, or those shifts can be assigned to someone that's available. But the request becomes the schedule. So the person that authorizes the request doesn't have to schedule vacation. It's automatically done for the scheduler. And that's what's nice about it. The next tool I want to cover is Resource Scheduler. Now, for those ScheduAll customers out there, this will look very familiar because just like ScheduAll, it's a horizontal calendar, basically, of your resources. So if I reduce this to 2 weeks and I zoom in a little bit, I can zoom in as much as I want. So for us here, I'm actually creating as many groups of resources as I need for my production. When I create groups of facilities, well, really, a group of resources can contain facilities. For us, a facility is either a piece of equipment or a production area. It could also be, like, for example, a mobile truck. There's really two ways, for example, in VimBiz to track or manage equipment. It's either that you book them as facilities or you check them out as by scanning their barcodes. But we offer both ways. Maybe some of your equipment, you don't want to implement a very, very strict rentals solution, and scheduling them is good enough for you, and that's fine. The other thing I want to point out here is integration with our other solutions. For example, HD1 and HD2 are in red right now. The reason behind that is because they contain assets that have an open service request on them. So before I schedule the studio or the mobile, if I know that there may be some technical issues in there, because we have a service module, we have an asset management module, we can inform the planner that there may be something wrong in that facility that they should know about before scheduling it. So let's say I need an editing suite. I'm going to zoom in one day, and I'm going to create an event. Doesn't really make sense, Tom. You're working in the past. Well, that's my demo data. I apologize for that. But I'm going to create an event on my edit suite. Now, something you see here happening is not only have I created an event on this editing suite, and I'll link it to a production project here, me linking that event to that production project automatically gave it a cost center as well, right? But the other thing that happened is that automatically, because I configured it that way, I have a booking type that was selected for that edit suite 1. What a booking type is, really, it's a template that I can reuse as many times as I want, and it may be pre-configured with roles. So this is a simplistic example, but think of a OB truck or a TV studio that have a crew of like 24 employees that can all be pre-configured in the template like the booking type. And now I just need, and in fact, this role right there has automatically been assigned to a virtual employee. I could, if I wanted to, allocate a real employee to that role from here, but I'll do it in another form that is more applicable to this type of work. Before I assign this role event to employees, I want to show you a few more tools here. For example, if I need that event on the next few days, for the next couple of weeks, let's say I need this editing suite every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next couple of weeks. So I just select my days, paste that event, and I very quickly did a copy and paste operation. In this form, what I will show next is also the ability to manage your projects, your productions, basically. And VimBiz gives you the ability to categorize these projects by master projects. For example, I have some projects here that are for documentaries, I have some promos, and of course, I have my VimBiz productions. One of my VimBiz production, I can break down in smaller, more manageable project tasks if I so desire. So if I click on VimBiz, a new project, let's pretend that I need an editing suite for that project as well, but I don't know which one is available today. So I can leverage that concept of resource group that we just saw by adding basically my editing suite group. I'll add all the editing suites that I have at my disposal. I'll see which one is available, and I'll basically book the first one that I see that I want. And then the process is the same, except that when I work on a project, I will only see the resources that are scheduled on my project for my period that I have up here. That's why all the other editing suites are gone, right? Because I only kept the one that was assigned to that project. One last thing, because we talked about templates earlier, but templates to schedule employees, right? Well, we've created another type of template, and this is a new feature in VimBiz. We call it the multi-day template feature. Shift templates are designed for employees. Multi-day templates are designed for any of your resources, facilities, employees, equipment. You could have a very complex week, a week's worth of resources that you need for multiple different projects. I created a group here that contains all my VimBiz projects. And in September of this year, there's nothing assigned to none of those productions yet. I'm going to show you a tool, a template here that I pre-configured. It's going to give you an idea of, and I know you deal with this every day. Look at all these events. I have some virtual facilities in here. I have some actual facilities. I have some virtual employees because I don't know yet who's going to fulfill these skills. I have actual employees as well. So it's a combination of all sorts of resources that I pre-configure, and I can reuse as much as I want. So if I select my September 16th date and I apply this, VimBiz will just quickly apply these events on that week. This actually came, it's a tool that was requested by one of our customers, the SRG in Switzerland. And what they used to do to have this tool, literally, they would go in the future, let's say in 2030, and they would create that complex week in the future. Then they would basically, every time they wanted to reuse that very complex schedule, they would go in 2030 or whatever, select all events and copy and paste them on weeks that they really needed that complex production. So what we did with them is we allow them to create a template and save it as a template. And there's a lot more that I could show you here, like you can identify all the events by their template color, and you can reapply a template and whatnot, but time will not permit it today, unfortunately. Okay, next step of the process. I've been doing a lot of scheduling up to now, and I've been doing a lot of what we call unnamed planning, right? I'm planning for roles, and I don't know yet who's going to fulfill these roles. My colleague Stefan did a great demo this morning on our business requirements module, which if anybody is interested to seeing that demo, they will be available on our YouTube channel. We've recorded all this week's demos. But the business requirements module also has the ability to allow your users to plan resources for each of their production. And upon submission, it also automates the creation of scheduled events on virtual resources. Basically, what I'm talking about is we designed this screen called the Business Request Allocation Form specifically to help schedulers allocate these events that automatically get placed on virtual resources, right? So if I go in my week of April 15th here, think of the yellow lines as my requirements. They're not yet allocated. At the bottom, I have the employees that can fulfill these requirements. So this form was designed such that if I select a whole bunch of requirements like this and I refresh my screen, VimBiz will show me who's qualified to fulfill these requirements. And then it's just a simple drag and drop to do the assignment. We do the same thing with facilities, and we can push it a bit further by let me try to find an example here. I think I have a pretty good example a bit further in this month. Okay. The other thing I want to show before I show you the example on adding information to the requirements, I want to talk a little bit about all these filters here at the bottom and why this form is such a powerful tool for our planners. Because I could say, hey, I want to only focus on requirements that are specific to a project, and I will only see requirements specific to that project. Or I want to see, I am only interested right now at handling camera operators' requirements, regardless of my productions. So all these filters not only allow me to filter the list of requirements I will see, I could also filter the list of resources that are qualified to fulfill these requirements. And then very quickly, if I know that I'm just working with camera operators, you can imagine how fast I can just go ahead and assign these requirements, because I know that who appears as, in terms of employees, are qualified to fulfill the requirements in the top portion of the form. Okay. Now, the requirements can be as detailed as you want it to be. I need a journalist. Okay, that's interesting. And actually, let me focus on journalists here. So I reduced the size a little bit because I have so many requirements in this week. I'll make things a bit easier. Okay, I need a journalist is one thing, and everybody is qualified, right? What if not only do I need a journalist, but I need a journalist with very specific skills? So I'm informing VimBiz that I need a journalist is very broad, but perhaps I need a journalist that can speak Spanish or Italian or German, right? So me adding skills to the requirement, what is it going to do? It's going to reduce my list of qualified employees, right? So if I select that role, let's pretend that Brad Johnson has that ability. So each employee in VimBiz will have a profile with the roles that they can fulfill, the skills they may have, the contracts that basically governs the rules that need to be respected as you schedule these employees. Brad can speak German, or at least he learned it within 2 minutes. It's easy to learn German, isn't it? We have some German-speaking people in the audience. It is easy, no? No, it's not. I am multilingual. If you haven't detected it yet, I'm a French Canadian. I have a strong French accent. I was also sharing before the demo that I'm fluent in Spanish because my wife is from Mexico, and she sort of forced me to learning it. Anyway, I'm joking. But now that I selected that role event, or that Brad is the only person in my team that's now qualified to do that job, and I can assign it to him. Okay. Let's use our imagination. We talked about requirements. We talked about resources that can fulfill these requirements. You can be extremely detailed when you set the requirements. You can be extremely detailed when you set your resources, who's qualified to do what. Then it's not far-fetched to imagine that software could automate all that for me. Or is it? We have the requirements, we have the data. VimBiz allows, and this is a big project at VimSoft at the moment, VimBiz allows for the automation of these allocations. So I have a pretty extensive list of shifts that need to be assigned here, but it not only allocates these shifts automatically for me, it looks at the employee's contract, the working conditions that need to be respected. I'll throw a few examples. I cannot schedule my employees more than 10 days in a row. I must give them at least 8 days off a month. I must respect minimum 11 hours between 2 events. Otherwise, I create an encroachment rule breach that will cost me a lot of money. I have a lot of working regulations that I need to respect. ScheduBot is aware of that. It has that data. It knows what the requirements are. It knows who's qualified to fulfill them. And therefore, it has the ability to automate everything. Now, it's going to take a few seconds because it's basically collecting all these requirements in memory, but then it allocates those shifts automatically. We truly believe that this is the future of scheduling, and many of our customers have already signed up to start implementing it. The last part of my demo, or at least the last 2 parts of my demo, is I've created a lot of schedules, right, on employees, but they haven't seen it yet because I haven't published them yet. So the planners are sort of protected up until a schedule is published. Only then will the employees have access to those schedules. Makes sense, right? So The team scheduler was designed for publishing schedules, and the main reason behind that is it gives you warnings to avoid these very hefty, expensive penalties if you don't respect the employee's contracts conditions. It also allows you to track how many hours you're scheduling, so it gives you a lot of counters to ensure that you're scheduling the right amount of hours on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis. Whatever your contract period is, it is fully configurable in VimBiz. I double-clicked on the wrong employee, I'm sorry. I wanted to work with Ariana Good that has a few warnings. And I'm running a app emulator, SQL server, a web server, so my laptop is not cooperating with me. So I'm going to open up another VimBiz. I think I've opened too many forms. I have too many things going on here. Okay, let's go back to Team Scheduler. I'm going to open up editor, and yes, actually, that is a feature. You can open as many VimBiz as you want, something that you may not be able to do with your current tool. So here, what I want to show you is in real time, you see some rules that were breached. I'm creating overtime on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I can quickly solve that by giving poor Ariana, that's a bit overworked that week, a little meal event right in the middle, right? So I'm solving in real time these overtime warnings. Maybe I am creating another type of rule breach, an encroachment rule breach, and I'm warned in real time. We work in the broadcasting industry. It is what it is. Sometimes we have to publish a schedule as is, create overtime, create encroachment. So I am going to publish this as is. At the bottom here, and I'm not spending a whole lot of time on this, but these are all the counters that our schedulers use to ensure that they are respecting the right hour, the thresholds of hours that they need to respect. Here at this point, I could send Ariana an email. I could send her an SMS. I'm not going to do that because I'm not set up for it. But ultimately, when you publish schedule, you want to inform the employee that you have done so. You want to send them an email notification. On their phone, they'll have a mobile notification that appears on the screen. The user will have many different ways of viewing their schedules. They can use our mobile app. They can use our web interface. We can integrate with Microsoft Outlook so that their calendars is on Microsoft Outlook's, their Outlook's calendar. The last step of the demo, however, not focused on viewing published schedule. I want to focus on actual time tracking. So Ariana here, I don't want to sleep. What's going on here? There we go. Ariana is going to open up her time card and will track or change her time card to basically tell her manager what she really did that week. So let's say on Monday, she worked a bit of overtime on this production project. Maybe her manager asked her to come in earlier on Tuesday. And maybe for some odd reason, the same producer also asked her to wait to work a bit more in the afternoon on a very specific production. Maybe on Friday morning, she ended up working until 1400 on the first event, and VimBiz protects her by not creating an overlap in her time card by giving her a warning. So she adjusts it very quickly. What I want to show you is that when a time card doesn't balance, VimBiz provides you with an automated tool that looks at the employee's contract, looks at the employee's working condition, your union rules, all that will be taken into account. VimBiz has the ability to automate the calculation of these codes that your payroll system needs. Something that is very important when you have very complex working conditions, very important union rules or complex union rules. And these claims, these codes, and actually you can see the encroachment that I created and I published it with the encroachment. Well, you can see the premium. You can see the 4-hour premium because Ariana on Thursday, she worked very late that day and there was a premium paid for her. So the employee sees in real time what their paycheck will look like, basically. But of course, this needs to be submitted and authorized before it hits the payroll system for obvious reasons. So Ariana here, am I logged in as Ariana? No, I'm logged in as Michelle, I'm sorry. Ariana will log into the smartphone app and the same time card that I just filled in front of you is also visible on the mobile app and can be submitted for authorization. So this is it, the process from A to Z, scheduling, human resources, technical resources, managing production project, tracking costs, filling time cards. What I'd like to do next, it'll only take me 5 minutes. I have a little fireside chat with one of my colleagues. Laurence is one of our implementations manager at VimSoft. And at the very beginning of my presentation, Laurence, I talked about replacing ScheduAll with VimBiz. VimBiz being a good alternative to that system. Can you tell any ScheduAll customer looking out there for a replacement what they can expect in terms of the time that it takes to replace ScheduAll with VimBiz?
Yeah, well, it really depends on the client. We actually adapt to the client's pace, so if we have a client that wants to move fast, it can be as little as 3 months. The client that wants to move a bit slower, just to make sure that there's a lot of change management attached to that, obviously. So if we need to have more sessions spread out, more teams involved, then it really depends on the client.
So I really want my ScheduAll data in VimBiz. Do you offer tools that speeds up the process of importing that into the database, or how does that work?
Yeah, we want the implementation to be, again, adapted to the client space. So we've automated all of the development that's needed to do an implementation. We've been in production for a while with many clients, so we know that the tool is there. We have the configurations needed to adapt to complex business rules, and from a to go back to your question around the data, we have importation systems just to make sure that we automate the data importation. And we also have the APIs if there's system integrations. So really we've minimized the amount of development needed to do an implementation so that it's mostly focusing on training, change management, and configurations.
Yeah, I mean, my experience in dealing with people that already have been using a system like ScheduAll or any other scheduling system, the learning curve is much shorter because they're scheduling experts, and VimBiz offers them familiarity and modern tools that they can very quickly learn. But these concepts apply for any customer, ScheduAll or not. I mean, the pace of the customer, the speed at which we want to move and can move, but also the teams on both sides is very important. Tell us how it is to work with a VimSoft team.
Well, the interesting thing with VimSoft and VimBiz is that it's a partnership. And now I know everyone says we work as a partnership, but what's different with us is it's actually a network of partnerships, because right now all of our clients meet on a monthly basis to talk about their business problems. They talk about how they use VimBiz to solve them, or they talk about new business problems and other clients that other clients might have already solved. So they kind of learn from each other like that. And sometimes we talk about new business problems that we haven't solved yet. So as a group, we define how we're going to solve that. And so we're all working together to grow together.
There's only one VimBiz, right? VimSoft never branches off for any of its customers, is that correct?
That's right. So we only have one code base. So again, because we want to make sure that everyone can learn from each other, if we do something new for a client, everyone has access to that as well when they get the updates.
So VimBiz evolves with the industry basically, which is great for all customers that joins the team. What about, implementing an enterprise software like VimBiz isn't like installing Microsoft Word, right? It's enterprise. What are the common pitfalls or mistakes that you would say need to be avoided when implementing a system like this?
Well, I've been doing that for about 7 years now, working with enterprise clients, implementing enterprise software, and at the end of the day, you can have the perfect solution, but if you don't have the processes in place to implement it, it's going to fail. It's funny because I was actually reading an article about that, and this firm was doing a research specific to ERP management systems, and the success rate was 67%. And when I was reading about how was it successful, it was always about the process, the people, the stakeholder buy-in. And so what we've done at VimSoft is we've set up the whole implementation process around 3 pillars: communication and helping our clients with change management, proven processes that work, and also stakeholder management, but not just high-level stakeholders, but anyone that's involved directly or indirectly with the tool will be involved at some point in the implementation.
I get it. The right solution, but also the right people.
That's right.
Right? And the VimBiz team has the experience. We've done it before. We know how to do it. So thank you, Laurence. Thank you for your participation, to my fireside chat. Let's go have a cup of wine and enjoy the show. So thank you everybody for your attention. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
What did you think?